Hola amigos, this is the Old Goat in the Old Goat Garage today. Weather is spectacular, like 70 some degrees here in the middle of February. How'd that happen? I don't know, it's nice though, I'm enjoying it. It's supposed to get cold again, so probably not gonna last. This is a tutorial, may or may not make it to YouTube, but I have a friend who is not real familiar with the use of a cutting torch, and so this is kind of just to help him out. I have no formal training with this like so many of the things I do. Picked up a few things here and there. Have become a little proficient, although I don't use much anymore. I've got a plasma cutter that if I've got to cut stuff I prefer to use now. But anyway, this will probably keep you from killing yourself and might even get the job done. I'm gonna have to play with the camera a little bit here. So first thing I want you to note is that this style of bottle doesn't have to be back seated. So if you got a big bottle, probably a good idea to open this valve all the way. I'm just opening it a little bit. The oxygen we want to back seat, in other words, open it all the way. Another thing that's good to do for the life of the regulators is to back off the pressure adjustment screw before you open that valve. If you don't, there's a rush of oxygen through this valve, and it's harder than the diaphragm, but it's also harder than the needle and seat that actually does the regulating. This torch, I'm going to set it at 20 psi, or the oxygen regulator, I'm going to set it at 20 psi. The acetylene, you don't want any higher than 15. The acetylene becomes unstable above 15 psi. It's also important that you keep the acetylene bottle in the upright position. There's a honeycomb sort of ceramic, if I remember correctly, that helps stabilize the acetylene, and if I remember correctly, the chemical that's in there is acetone. The acetone helps keep that stable, and if you lay the bottle down, you draw off some of the acetone, and the acetylene tends to become unstable, and above around 15 pounds, it can literally explode. So that's something to bear in mind. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the torch, and this is a real small service torch. I've got a couple other torches, so you may have to expand this a little bit. But I usually leave the oxygen on the cutting torch all the way open, and then I regulate the oxygen with this valve alone. And then the one on the left, and of course you can also see it because the acetylene hose is the red hose, the oxygen is the green hose. But I open this up just a little bit. Okay, now what I do is I'm gonna put on my glasses because my eyes are already burned up. Observe the flame. There's a place there where it gets almost clear. See that area right there, about a ½ inch off the tip, where the flame is about clear? That's where I usually run the torch. Now, slowly open the oxygen valve until those blue flames pull down real sharp. As you can see, they're about a ½ inch long. I guess you can see that, maybe not. And then I use the cutting oxygen valve. You see how they got fuzzy? So now I'm going to hold the cutting knob down. You see that spit of blue flame in the middle? That's ready for cutting. Another thing to keep in mind is that if you cut and you aim the torch towards the direction you cut, you tend to get a little less slag on the bottom of your cut. This paint on there, I'm a little careless sometimes, but you got to get a little spot kind of red hot. This is literally the first time I've ever used this particular torch. I've used other small service torches, but very, very seldom. When I'm soldering air conditioning stuff, I use a turbo torch, which is an aspirator torch. You don't have to use oxygen with that, but I prefer that over an oxyacetylene. The oxyacetylene is a little hot for me. I learned to braze and solder air conditioning stuff anyway. I've soldered some steel. But see all that slag there? If you keep the tips of those blue flames in contact and move at the right speed and keep that torch not straight up and down and not this way, but actually pushing this way, you tend to get a little less slag. I don't know if I'll conquer this particular issue or not. Again, this is literally, I just acquired this torch last week, and it's the first time I've ever used it, and I haven't used a small oxyacetylene rig in 2 or 3 years anyway. I have used my big one a time or two in the last 2 or 3 years, but just for really rough stuff. And anyway, I'm going to do it one more time. Again, we're going to turn on the acetylene real gently, just a little bit there. Again, I'm kind of going to open that up until I see that almost clear area. And on this time, because this is such light material that I'm cutting, I'm going to close the acetylene off a little bit. And again, press the button, the lever for the cutting option until I maintain fairly sharp blue flame there, and my cutting flame in the middle is pretty long and pretty narrow. Here we go again. Now this time I'm going to try to make a vertical cut instead of, and actually, oh, what'd I do there? I don't know. Let's see. It's best to not relight the torch with the oxygen and acetylene both open, because you can get a flashback through the hoses and literally blow up a bottle. I've never seen it happen, but I know it can happen. So I start by opening the acetylene and okay. Oh, I see what the deal is. All right, I'm going to make an adjustment on the torch. The knobs are just a little loose, and I'm going to need a 6-inch crescent wrench probably. Something narrow enough to get in there. Tighten up the packing nut just a little bit. Of course, I could use the copper end wrench, but you know, that makes too much sense. Can't do that. So what's happening is I bumped this knob both times that the torch went out on me. I bumped it with my finger, and with the gloves on, I didn't have enough sensitivity to realize I was doing that. And that wrench is not going to work. Move the old goat out of the way. Get in this drawer and see if we can find a little bit more of a slimline crescent wrench. Here's a 4-inch. That'll do the trick, I think. Yeah. Okay, I'm just tightening that up so that it takes a little more pressure to operate these valves, particularly the acetylene valve. All right. Back where we started. As you can tell, I'm not much of a cameraman. Just barely a technician, but definitely not a cameraman. All right, I pulled that primary flame way down. I'm going to make it just a little longer. If I was cutting something real fine, that's about a 3/32, maybe an 1/8 inch of primary flame here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow straight down instead of last time I actually kind of walked the flame down through this, but this time I'm just going to blow straight down. Note the color. Now part of it's getting red immediately because I'm burning paint. And you don't have to get, well, let me go, yeah, let me do that. Okay, I don't know if you can see that or not, but now I've cut that vertical face entirely. As you can see, I've broken my rule about the angle of the tip. I did that to get, That's pretty hot apparently, because as you can see, it's still red hot. It's a little hotter than necessary. But again, I'm a novice with this particular torch. Okay, got a little less slag that time, so I did a little better. Okay, this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to shoot through and slice this way without moving the head, and then I'm going to come down to it. You'll see what I mean here in a moment, I think. Yeah, we're still in the camera. One of these days I'll make a YouTuber if I'm not careful. All right, so since I'm going to cut it this way, that burning paint smells so good. Feels good in my throat too. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but I hear that acetylene rushing out pretty hard. That's more. You can see I've turned it way down and it's still pretty aggressive. Not setting the shop on fire here, or my feet, or any of those things. You're actually burning the steel with a torch, not just melting it. Okay, I'm going to swing this around here, and you can see how that this cut was relatively clean, even on the back side, but because I was so far away from this vertical face, I didn't move the torch into it. I just blew straight through this. That was okay. But then I got quite a bit of slag buildup there where the torch tip was really a little over an inch away from that vertical face. Okay, what else do we need to know? I don't know. I think that's about all I have to show at the moment. If I need to, I'll make another video. Alrighty, thank you. You know who you are. Wish you well.